Good evening, Fighting Scots. My name is Jordan Sherpy-Lencioni, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement here at Monmouth College. I want to welcome you all to our event tonight, Beekeeping, a Virtual Experience. We're sad that we've had to ground our alumni events, but we are excited to bring all of our alums together virtually for a little bit of learning and a lot of fun. We are thrilled that you were able to join us this evening. Before the program, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. Participants will be on mute and can send questions in the chat for Dr. Craig Vivan. I will be moderating the questions and we'll try to answer them throughout the program. For the best viewing experience, please ensure that you are on speaker mode, which can be selected in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Tonight's event should last approximately 1 hour. Also, we would love to hear ideas from you for events that interest you. Please respond to the short 3-minute survey that will go out after the event ends. Tonight, we're expecting approximately 70 people, so let's get to know each other. In the chat, tell everyone your name, the names of who are watching with you, your grad year, and where in the world you are watching from. Now, a little bit about our presenter this evening. Dr. Craig Vivan has been teaching at Monmouth College for 20 years and is a practicing apiarist, also known as a beekeeper, for the past 10 years. He started his interest in bees for many years before that, even trying to start a beekeeping project while serving in the Peace Corps. He was able to interact with different variety of bees in several other countries where he has lived and worked, including Zimbabwe, France, and Switzerland. Dr. Craig Vivan was able to learn about the bees while working on his PhD in New York at Cornell University, which is an academic leader in studying bees and disease. He is currently a professor in the Educational Studies Department and uses bee observation in his courses as he promotes the use of a garden curriculum, which focuses on the diverse ecology of the garden as a means of applying elementary science, math, literature, and social studies. I'm going to unmute Dr. Craig Vivan and show his video, and then Doctor, the floor will be yours.
All right, are we ready?
We're ready.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm glad that you were able to join us tonight. We're here at the Monmouth College Educational Garden on Broadway. I'm sure some of you have been here. And we're going to look at these some parts of these 3 hives we have here today. I'll show you, talk a little bit about the bee as a social insect. We'll talk a little bit about the way that bees live and what their kinds of tasks are, how they help us, of course, what it means to keep bees, and then some of the problems that bees are facing, and also the future of bees. So I'll try to cover all that, and then of course I'm hoping all of you will have questions, and then we'll go from there. So first thing I want to, and please, I don't know how it's going to work, but if you have a pressing question, figure out some way to ask it, because I can't see any of you. I've got my friend Amjad is videotaping me, or capturing me on a phone. I will start off by telling you what a beekeeper actually uses, and then I won't use much of it at all, but I'll use some of it. So when you're going to keep bees, what you need, or a lot of people need, is protection from stings. Now, stings are the only way the bees have of defending their hive. When a bee stings you, it leaves its stinger in you because it has a little barb on the end of the stinger. And as it flies away, the stinger stays in you along with the poison sac, or the venom sac, and it pumps that poison, that venom in you. And so that's why you'll have it'll be painful, and then that's why you'll have a swelling and an itching later on. But once they fly away, of course, they die because it's kind of eviscerated them. And that's why you have, when one bee stings you, it signals to all the other bees to sting you, to get you away from their hive. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know, a lot of people say, well, I've been stung by bees. Well, maybe you have, but probably you haven't. unless you're very good at identifying bees, from wasps. There are a lot of wasps and a few hornets, mostly wasps, that do look similar to bees. But bees are herbivores. Wasps and hornets are carnivores. Wasps and hornets, they hunt other insects for their food. So they can sting, and the reason they sting is for hunting purposes, for eating. Bees, their only reason they would sting is for defense. So a bee that's flying around is not going to come up to you and sting you unless, you know, something's gone haywire in their system, or unless you do something like step on it or swat at it or something like that, and you kind of get them thinking that you might kill them. Then they might sting you in defense. Again, it's in defense, but they're never going to come on the offensive. And we'll see that in just a minute when I go into the hives. So that's one thing that Disney did get correct. That once Winnie the Pooh goes into the hive, the bees will chase Winnie, but not before that. All right, so let's look at a few things that we've got here. When you see someone on a documentary or something, they've always got gloves on, and these are kind of inspired by Betty Davis, going off the evening glove, going up to protect you all the way to your elbow. You've got the ubiquitous veil, and this is a hat that lets you see, but also keeps the bees from getting too close to you to sting. You know, if they're going to sting you, because it's more painful to get stung in the face and the hands than just about anywhere else. And then the last thing is the bee suit, and there's many versions of this bee suit. This for me is the best one. It's only about $5 on Amazon. It's made completely out of DuPont Tyvek, and it's no beast can sting through this. This is very, very, very strong material. Now the only bad thing is it's completely waterproof. So when you're in this suit for about 5 minutes, you start to really perspire. But those are the things, most of the things that beekeepers need in terms of clothing. We have what's called a bee tool, and this is actually just like a pry bar that you can get at a hardware store, but it's used for a lot for prying. And I'll show you why in just a minute. And then we have the smoker. And every beekeeper has a smoker. Now, a lot of beekeepers ask me, why do you have to smoke the bees? And I say, well, most beekeepers smoke them because they want to get a little buzz. Now, I can't tell if you're laughing or not. If you are, good for you. If you're not, I'll try to make you laugh later. All right, so let's go over here, and I'm going to open up the hive, and we're going to start to look at the different levels of the hive and see what we find, okay? So come on over here with me. Now, the real reason you smoke the bees is because, well, nobody knows 100% for sure, but the reason that is given, and I will say smoking does work, is that it confuses the bees, or it tricks the bees into thinking that there's a fire nearby. And because bees in the wild, of course, are going to live in trees. They're going to live in hollow, dead trees. And so if there's a fire close by, it probably will consume the tree they're in. If they can smell the smoke, they know the fire's probably coming. And so what they do is they go into the hive and they start to ingest, eat honey in case they need some food resources as they fly away from the tree that's going to burn down. So you will see when I smoke them that they actually they're going to be on top of the hive. They will all go into the hive. They'll descend into it and they'll disappear from the top. So they are going down into the hive. So we can look and see if that's exactly what happens or not. But it does work, so I will use it. Now, I don't tend to use any of the protective clothing. Some people say I'm brave. Some people say I'm stupid. For me, the reason I don't use it is because it gets in the way of me. I can't see very well with the veil on. I can't feel very well with the gloves on. I don't look very good with, I can't see my tie if I have the suit on. So I just tend to kind of just do it in my, my work clothes. So we'll come in. Now, the other day I was here Let me explain to you the hive real quick. So this is the outer cover. This is just, it's got a piece of sheet of metal on it. This is just a small cover, and that is just some protection from the elements, mostly rain and snow. This is the inner cover. Now the inner cover goes right on top of the hive. It has a hole in the middle, and that is so that bees can come up and exit. There'll be we always have an exit, way to exit from the inner cover outside. And so that's there for that. It also allows the bees, again, another level of protection and insulation. Okay. Now, if you look at these hives here, let's start with this one. You can see that this is a 11 inches, around 10 to 11 inches tall. This one's about 6, and this one's about 6. This is called a deep hive. This is called a super or a medium. And they serve different purposes. Now, most of the time, I like the deep hives with some supers on top. But you'll see over here, I have 2 deeps. This one I have 1 deep and 2 supers. Over here in the next one, I have 2 of these deep ones and then 1 super. And I try to experiment a little bit to see if the bees makes any difference. It doesn't usually seem to make much difference. But what we want, what I want to tell you is that in the deep, that's where most of the productive kind of mechanisms are going on. Queens laying eggs or brood. The workers are gathering, they're gathering pollen. They're gathering propolis, other things, and they're coming back and they're making it. They're putting it in here. They're keeping it and using it. These are smaller, and these for beekeepers are mainly used to collect honey. And so you have a smaller frame here. Now this is the frame. This wooden piece is called the frame, and inside is what we call the foundation. And if you look at it closely, what it is a pressed piece of wax that's already been. Can you catch it? Can you see the honeycomb pattern?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's already been fabricated to imitate the honeycomb pattern, the hexagon that bees naturally make. And so this is just a foundation the bees can build on. So it just gives them something that helps them more efficiently and quickly build the honeycomb. Okay. Now there's some wires in here. You can see these wires, I think, right here as I'm going down. These are little wires. They're in there to strengthen this honeycomb, because when we get honey, we will spin this in a centrifugal machine, and it will throw the honey off of the foundation into the kind of canister, so that we can collect the honey. But if you spin it pretty quickly, so it needs that extra wire in there for strength, so that it doesn't break while you're spinning it. Okay. But now this is what's on the top. I just put this in the other day, hoping the bees might kind of start to want to make some honey, and obviously they don't. All those are empty. So I'm going to go to the second hive. Now the second hive, I'm going to smoke a little bit. You can see, now let's look in here. There's a few bees here. Most of them are going to be down lower. There's a few bees on top. Now watch what happens when I smoke them. You can see that they all are kind of moving around. Either they're flying off or they're going down. So that's what's happening. I think I hear some of them. Yep, some of them are yelling fire. So I will pull out some of these frames so you can look and see what these frames look like.
Dr. Vivian, we have 2 questions
Yes.
in the chat. The first is from Bill Pyatt. What percentage of honeybees live and work in the artificial hives compared to wild hives?
Oh, that's a great question. And I will say what I know from what I've read about wild bees and what I know from having worked with domestic bees. Domestic bees, they do several jobs. They are nurses. They are gatherers. They are defenders or guards. They are builders. Every bee does those jobs at some point in their short life, because a bee average lifespan or expectancy is about 3 to 4 weeks. You've heard busy as a bee. Well, they are super busy. And they kind of change jobs as they emerge from the cell, and then work their way through the nursing, through the building to the gathering. Now, it's a gathering that really ages them. It's like becoming president of the United States. You know, you go in with black hair and you come out with gray hair. Once you start gathering, you're flying miles a day, all day long, to get pollen or to get resin from plants, to take those and turn those into products that they need. They need pollen, they need honey, they need propolis, they need these things, and we'll look at each one of those in a minute as I'm opening it up. And to do that, they are constantly out, going out and coming back. And so that really, really takes a toll on the bee and its life. Now, from what I've read, wild bees have the same issues. They're doing the same things. So domesticating them is not like domesticating wolves into, and turning them into dogs, where their life is much easier, and so they live longer. It's really about the same, because all we do basically is use them and steal from them. I hate to say that, right? We keep them here, they do all the work, and we steal their honey. But we only steal extra honey. That's why it's called super. Okay? It's up and above what they need. I will always leave more honey than they need for the winter, and I'll get into that in a minute. So about 3 to 4 weeks is the answer to that question. Second question?
The second question is from Vicky Young, and she says, how do the bees exit through the slot in the inner cover of the metal cover when it is in place?
Good. Well, there's 2 ways that they can do that. The way that I do it, so when you look at some inner covers, I'll show you this one. Now, this inner cover does not have an exit notch, meaning some people have this inner cover, and you can see it's recessed here, right? You can see my thumb goes down, it's recessed. And they will cut out a groove right here, so the bees, when they come out, can go right through that groove out. This does not have one. They make them both ways. This doesn't have one. So to make sure with my bees that they can still get out, what I do is when I put this on top, and you can see here, if you look here, you can see I have, can you see that, Amjad? I have propped this up on the back side. So what I do here, I'll do the same thing here. I prop this up on the back side and let it overhang on the front side, so the bees have this area underneath here that they can exit from, because it's not actually touching there, because it's propped up here. Now, if I were to take this and put it all the way on like that and close it, they would have no way to get out of this part. They would have to then just exit and enter down here in the front through this front area here. Good question. Both of those are good questions. I hope that answered them. If I didn't answer it, please let me know. Okay, so I'm going to look at these. What I've got here. So what we've got is, so here's that foundation I was telling you about. We can see here that bees have started to what we call draw out the comb, meaning they're building the cells. And here they've even gone one step further. They have made honey, produced honey, and filled each of these cells with honey. And then they have capped the honey, meaning the viscosity or the ratio of water to honey product is just right, and it's thick enough and cured enough that they feel that this is ready to sell. And so they let us have it. Now, what I'll do here is, you can see, later on, if I want to get the honey, what I'll do is I'll take a little knife and I will decap this or uncap it by cutting off this cap here. You see that white cap there? And as I do that, what do I find? I find that's full of honey. I will put my finger in there and get some of that honey. Oh, that's a good vintage. Yeah. Now, what you'll see immediately is the bee will come over here, they will see that this has been somewhat damaged, and they will immediately start to repair it. So if I put this over here and let it sit, there'll be many bees coming over here in a second trying to repair it. First drinking the excess honey that has been kind of displaced, and then starting to rebuild the comb here and putting that back into place. Now, where does the wax come from? It's actually produced and secreted from this back part of their abdomen here, where those stripes are. They actually secrete the wax from there, and then they take it, form it, and build it into this structure here. Hope that answers your question. And ask me any questions you want about honey, because that way I get an excuse to eat some. All right.
Dr. Vivian, would you say that there are more wild bees or more domesticated bees?
That's a great question. I'm guessing right now, well, that is a fluid question, and I'll explain that. I would say until recently, until the 80s, there probably were more domesticated bees than wild bees, because we in the States and around the world have a tendency to destroy the natural habitat of some wildlife, including bees, which are trees. We don't let trees get old, become hollow, and then let bees go in there and live. Right? We tend to think old dead trees are ugly. They don't have any purpose, and so we cut them down. So I think that we've reduced the places that bees can live. At the same time, because we like honey so much and it's a product that we want to consume, we have had a huge growth of domesticated honeybee in the States, around the world. Now, that was I would say that was kind of the the upward, going up in terms of the numbers, whereas I think the wild bees were going down a little bit. Now, because of the colony collapse, you probably have heard of that. Bees are under threat from many different places, and one of those are humans. And so what we tend to do now is bees are transported, millions of bees are transported annually around the United States in order to be used for pollination around the country. They'll start up in the north for apples. They'll go down to Florida for citrus. They'll go across Georgia for peas. The same bees on a semi, just millions of bees. Probably 500, 600, 700,000 of these on a truck. Over to California for almonds, back up. They just kind of do this kind of circuit. But what happens there is the bees are stressed because they're always on the move. They are crowded because there's so many bees in one small area. So when you get some kind of disease, it's pretty easy for it to spread. And once they get stressed, they're much more like anybody else or anything else. Stress lowers their immune systems, and so they're more likely to get sick. And on top of that, we have lots of causes for their demise right now in terms of the domesticated bee. So I would say that right now there's probably a level, or definitely has been a loss of domesticated bees, but I don't think those same factors are working on the wild bee. So I think there's probably been a more of an evening out, I'm guessing. I still think there's probably more domestic bees because there's lots of people producing bees all the time. You got people in the South making bees all the time so they can sell them to other people. So I hope that answers that question. Now here, oh, look at this. This is just beautiful. This is what I like to see. This is a full, perfect, this is county fair looking quality for honey production. You can see the honey, if you look at this side, the honey's coming out. The cells have come out about a ½ inch. It completely covered with nice, pristine white cap. The bees are all busy filling in these holes here, these cells here that have not been yet filled with honey. Everybody's happy. Other side, same type of thing. You can see that. Again, to try to show you and make sure that you, one of my goals is to make people understand more about bees, but also to get rid of the kind of phobia or the fear that people have of bees. So I'm no different than you. I didn't put on any kind of bee repellent or anything like that. But you can see here, I can get bees. I can put my fingers here. They'll come. I can get them to get on my fingers here, or I can try. Even if they don't get on my finger, well, I know how to get on my finger. I'll get a little bit of that honey. Here, I'll take a little bit of honey here. There, now I'll come over here. See if I can get a bee to get, there we go. She's on there. She's eating, now she's, come on. Let's see if I can get her to stay on there. She goes, now she's on my finger eating honey. So they're not going to sting me. They're not, because I'm not threatening them. I'm not, even though I am stealing their honey, I'm doing it politely. Right? And so they're fine with that. Now, all bees like this, or 99% of the bees in a hive, are female. Females do all of the work. Males do no work in the hive. So all of these bees we see here are female bees. You got to go back. There you go. Now, let me tell you the story of the male bee. The male bee is called a drone. Females are called the workers. The male bee does one thing and that's it, really. The male bee mates with the queen. When a queen is born, and I'll talk to you about queen production in a little bit. When the queen is born, she has to go out. She's a virgin queen, so she has to go out, and they're all named Mary at the beginning. She has to go out and for a mating flight, and she'll mate with probably 10, 12 drones. And each one of those drones at the end of the mating dies and just falls back to the earth. But they don't do anything in the hive. And so when she comes back, once she gets back to the hive after that initial mating flight, she will stay there. She will never leave unless they do something called a swarm. She will never leave that hive. And she lays around 2,000 eggs a day for the rest of her life. From that one mating flight, she has enough of X and Y to lay eggs for the rest of her life. Now, how long does she live? She lives anywhere, so I would say 3 to 5 years. Most people who are going to keep bees are going to probably replace their queens probably rather frequently, maybe every 2 years, something like that. Because that's a lot of work, and the egg production does start to go down after a while. I forgot what the question was. I hope I answered it. Or if there was a question.
That sounds great. We do have some other questions. Dan Walker wants to know, if he builds one of these boxes, will the bees come?
If you build it, they will come. Yes, no. That's a good idea. Probably not. And the reason, you might get lucky. I mean, there's certain things you can put lemongrass in a hive to try to attract. There's pheromones you can put in a box to try to attract them. But there's something that bees are very particular about, and I'll show it to you. It's called bee space. Now, bee space is, I can't remember I think it's 3/8 of an inch or something like that. It's a very, very small, tight space. And these hives are constructed in such a way that the bee space is preserved everywhere in the box. If you built one and you did not keep that bee space, the bees would probably be unhappy. They might not. They might just fill it in with what we call propolis to create their own bee space and stay there. But usually not. They just, now they might, if you put it somewhere again in a, you know, they go to houses all the time. They're always going to people's houses. I think what attracts them there is actually the heat, but you should try it. You should build some boxes, put them in places and see what happens. That's a good question. But I think that if you do build it, you have to make sure you follow the specifications. Now let me show you something. Bees are very particular about how they work. And what you'll see is here, everything is closed up except, can you see right there, John? There's a hole there and there's a hole up here. They always make little holes in their foundation, in their comb, so they can go through to all the other different combs that they have there. Okay, I'm going to open this next one up. One below here, where I think there's a lot more going. So this is all honey up here. We're going to actually take the honey out of here, not tonight, but a little bit later. We'll take the honey out. This is called burr comb. This comb is actually not very, it doesn't serve much purpose. It's just being built because if they have nothing to do or they get bored or they just don't know what's going on here with this, instead of building here, they built on here. So I just have to get this burr comb off because it just becomes kind of a hassle to have to deal with when you're putting frames in and out. Okay, now here's a bee right here around me. I don't know if you can see it. It's just checking me out. It just became, you know, a lot of people get really freaked out when the bee buzzes around you. Again, if it's a really high buzz, you're going to know that. And look, by the time they sting you, I mean, the time you know they stung you, they've already stung you. There's nothing you can do about it. So this one, though, is not aggressive. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go this next one here. And I'm assuming the queen will be down here. Well, I know she will. We'll look for her in a second. So I'm going to smoke. These. And I'm really when it comes to keeping bees, I'm really a hands-off type of beekeeper. I do very little in terms of disrupting them day to day. I will come in once in a while, I'll look and see what they're doing, see what they're up to. And if I see a problem, I will try to fix it if I can, but I don't use any medications. I don't do anything in order to help the bees through pharmaceutical means. Now, I'm very, very much an outlier on this. In this, most of my friends use medications because there are some things that are really hurting bees a lot. I'm trying to get my hives to be as strong as possible so they don't succumb to these pests. And plus, I think, and if you've ever had our honey here, I mean, most people, I believe them when they say this, it's really, really the best honey they've had. And I think part of that is because I use no medications whatsoever, nothing. And I do believe that when people use medications, there's probably a little residual aspect of the medication that might stay behind. I don't know that for a fact, you know, I can't prove that, but I'm just guessing something stays behind a little bit and might get incorporated in some fashion, not the exact medication itself, but something that might slightly change the flavor. I don't know. Now, when we're looking at the bees here, let me show you a drone. See if you can find the drone here. I'll show you a bunch of bees, and let's look right here. If you see this bee right here that I'm pointing to, can you see how much bigger that bee is than the rest of these bees? I don't know if you can or not. Now, I'm just going to pick him up. There we go. I've got him. Remember, he can't sting me because he doesn't have a stinger. So And the other girls around him, they didn't bother me because, you know, well, they probably like me getting rid of him because he's just a lazy bum. But there he is. I'll let him go here now. But you can see he's very big, and he has very, very big eyes. Can you see that? Can you capture that, Anja?
Yeah.
Very big eyes, because he's got to be able to find that little queen flying up there somewhere. Once he gets that pheromone hit, he's got to find her. So he's big, but his eyes are so much bigger than the other bees, so he can find that queen. And he's not hurt or anything. There he goes. He's flying off. He's fun. And that's one reason. If I were wearing gloves, I would not be able to kind of calibrate the kind of pressure I need in order not to hurt the bees. And with gloves, you have since you don't get stung. Now, do I get stung? Yes, I get stung. But that I learned from that, so I change my kind of interaction with the bees over time. I've seen people who wear gloves, thick gloves, who can't feel the stings. They're not as in tune, and so they're likely to kill bees accidentally, probably, but kill more of them, and that in turn causes the bees to be a little more pissed off, irate, and they might react differently. So I usually don't have any problems going into a hive.
The phone is at 1%.
I'm sorry?
You're at 1%.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, listen. We might have to stop for a second.
2 minutes break.
Okay, for 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We might stop for a second, Jordan.
Okay.
Jordan, because the phone is gone down, so we might have to stop and change the phone for a second. If
Okay.
that's all right, if you can just hang on for a minute or two.
Yep, we can stay on.
And maybe get a few more questions.
Yep. We do have one question.
Sure. Go ahead.
How do the worker bees pick the queen? From Vicky.
How do they pick her?
Yes.
Okay. Here's what happens. We'll start with something's happened. The queen's dead. Long live the queen, right? She's dead. What if she has laid eggs recently? The workers will take several eggs. They will make what are called queen cells. I probably don't have any in here, but they're long cells because the queen, if we find her, you'll see how much bigger she is. They make queen cells. They put those eggs that would have been workers. Okay, she's laid worker eggs, female eggs. They take those eggs, they put them in that queen cell. They fill it with something called royal jelly. It's another thing that the bees make. And they fill up the cell with royal jelly, cap it off, and the queens eat that royal jelly. And by eating that royal jelly, it transforms them into a worker, into a queen. Now, when the queen hatches, usually they'll make 3, 4, 5 queens when they do this. The queens will all hatch, and the first one or the strongest one to hatch will go kill the rest of the queens so that that queen now dominates the hive. There's always just one queen in a hive, and the bees are loyal to her. And the bees in a hive, these hives probably have 20, 30,000, but a big hive, like some of the ones I have at the farm, will have 70, 80,000 bees in them. An existence of a queen cell I was telling you about with my last answer about the queen cell. So I'll show you what a queen cell looks like. I'm also now I'm looking for the queen while we're here. So I'm looking for some evidence that the queen is laying, that you can see all the activity here on the hive. And I'm looking to see what we've got. I don't see the queen yet. But I do want to show you a queen cell that they built, which means that they might be thinking of swarming. So that's on this one right here. Let me show you. Okay, so right here, do you see this right here? Queen cells will always be pointing down. And so there is a queen forming right now inside that queen cell. There's just one that I can see, which means that sometime in the next few days, there will be a queen emerging from that to either take over this hive. Well, yes, to take over this hive, because they might swarm. Now, a swarm, what's a swarm? You've seen or heard of swarms probably. A swarm is when there is the bees are doing very well, and they're too crowded. So there's not enough room for them, and they decide to take half the bees with the existing queen and move. And that's when they have a swarm, they go and they find some other place to live. Now they leave behind the new queen or queens and half of the hive. And those continue, they pick up right where everybody left off. Whereas the new group, or the news group, the old queen plus the 50% that leave, they'll go land on a tree somewhere. If you've ever seen a hive, that's what they're doing. They're just looking for a new home somewhere. Okay? I don't see the queen here, so it might be that I'm going to have a hard time finding her. I will still look a little bit. While I'm looking, if you have some more questions, I'll answer those while I'm looking.
We do have lots of questions. How do beekeepers control the flavor of the honey their bees make, such as wildflower or clover?
Good. Well, what usually happens with bees is, so beekeepers a lot of times will go and they'll pollinate a certain thing, like apple trees or cherries or almonds or whatever. When a beehive hits a certain source, let's say apples, and the apple blossoms are all, they're all blooming, those bees will only go to that source until that source is depleted. So that's how you know, or that's how a beekeeper will say, if I want apple blossom honey, I will put my bees in the middle of an apple orchard. And the bees will only go to the apple blossoms. They won't go anywhere else until those apple blossoms are done. They'll usually take, a week or two. And then that all the honey in there was made from that one source. I hope that answers it. And that's why most of your honey is clover, because clover's everywhere all the time.
That's great. We have several people asking if it's possible to purchase the honey at the farm and if there's any times that it is specifically for sale.
Yes, we have honey right now. We're about to get some more honey. And the person you can contact, Jordan, you can contact me, but Eric Engstrom, of course, is the person who's working on that side of the farm. I just collect the honey and then I give it to them so that they can do what they need to do with it. But we have honey for sale right now. So if you come to the college, you can easily buy it. I don't know if there's other arrangements you can make. That's the end of my answer.
Awesome. Another question, what processing steps happen between the harvesting of the honey from the hive to being sold in markets?
That's great. Well, I'll tell you what we do and I'll tell you what others do, and you'll see a slight difference. So what we do is we collect. So I'll take some of that honey that you saw earlier, right? I will take that, I'll cut off, like I said, that cap. I have a little machine, a little canister. It's an extracting machine. It's got a handle on it, a couple of gears, and it spins. I'll put those frames uncapped in there. I'll spin it. That centrifugal force will throw all that honey out to the sides, and then all that will drip down to the bottom. We then take that honey, that's raw honey, and it's got wax and stuff mixed into it. Everything's been thrown out of the frame, and we put that through a filter. It's a 0.02, I think, micron filter, and we run all the honey through that. That captures anything. I mean, it's a very fine filter. Captures everything but the honey. The honey seeps through that over a period of time, maybe 45 minutes or whatever, and into a bucket, a clean bucket that has a spigot on the front, and that honey we then put straight into the jar. Now, what we don't do, which a lot of other people will do, is pasteurize the honey. We won't heat it because, and I don't think there's any reason to do that, because honey is naturally anaerobic. There is nothing that can grow. Honey cannot turn moldy. There's nothing that can grow in honey. In fact, honey used to be used as a preservative for meat, for example. So, you know, you have honey cured hams and stuff like that. The reason originally why they were put in honey, meat was taken and put in honey, vats of honey, because then it would stay fresh. Nothing would go wrong with it. It wouldn't go off, it wouldn't go bad. Honey, even, you know, you probably have read this, honey, even today, honey that's been found in tombs in Egypt is still edible. So honey can't go bad. And so that's another thing. Once you pasteurize honey and heat it, you're going to kill heat it to, I think, 120, 130 degrees. You're going to kill some of the beneficial things that are in honey, which I can't name off the top of my head. But I know that they are killed in order to kind of satisfy this idea that we have done our due diligence by making sure that nothing's living in there. Well, nothing's living in there anyway. So I would encourage you, if you can, get natural, unpasteurized honey. And you'll definitely, well, I tell you what, once you taste some of our honey, you will never buy, I promise you this. I'm like the pillow guy. I promise you this. If you try honey from this farm, from us, you will never, ever eat that bare honey in the store again. That's a Craig promise. Hope that answered it.
Now, Dr. Vivian, we've got a question. If the bees swarm, do you try to catch them and bring them back to the colony?
I will. If I can capture them, I will, but I will not bring them back to this colony because they now have two queens, the queen that left and the new queen that stays. And that cannot happen. You can only have one queen. So those two queens would fight, those bees would fight. That's not a good, so I would capture them in a box and I would put them somewhere else on the farm.
Okay, we have another question. How long does it usually take for them to produce the amount of honey on a full panel?
On a full what?
On the panel that you were holding up of the honeycomb?
Oh, yes. That, well, if it's, okay, now we have what's called honey runs. We have a season, right? There's times when the flowers are really producing lots of nectar. And when that happens, the bees, I've seen bees fill up one of these boxes in a week. That is with nothing in there to filling it completely full of honey, maybe a week and a half, filling it with honey and then curing that honey. And that's pretty quick because this box right here that I'm picking up, if it's completely full, will weigh somewhere between probably 60 and 80 pounds of honey. That's a lot of honey.
Dr. Vivian, is it true that the queen can sting more than once?
Yes, because her stinger is not barbed like the worker bees. She's got a stinger that's very much like a hornet or a wasp stinger. So she can sting. Although I can pick up, just like I picked up that drone, I can pick up a queen bee. She will not sting me. I've never been stung by a queen, and I have picked them up. You know, I've petted them. I've taken them to a movie. Never been stung.
Awesome. And then have you seen a lot of variance in pounds of honey per hive in the last 5 years? Because of weather, habitat, climate, are those any determinants or even disease?
Disease for sure. There are some bees that, yes, it really depends on how well they get through the winter. If they get through the winter well and they have a good head start in April, then they are likely to produce quite a bit of honey. There's the one at the farm. These boxes are 2 or 3 boxes high. Some at the farm are 5 boxes high. Those are probably producing over the course of the summer. Those would produce 1, 2, 3, maybe 300, 350 pounds of honey.
Awesome.
And yeah, in terms of that's, you know, good weather and everything, right? But because once they build up the strength of the hive, meaning the number of bees, those bees, you've got tens of thousands of bees collecting nectar every single day. and bringing it back. So that is, you can make a whole lot of honey quickly with that workforce.
Awesome. Have you ever treated your bees for mites? And if so, what have you used?
I have not. I don't use any medications at all. And mite medications, to treat mites, well, I take it back. Most people use medications. There are other ways to treat mites. There are certain natural products you can dust them with certain things, some powders and stuff. But I don't do anything. So I have not treated. In fact, I haven't treated. And I will tell you this: I have my hives checked every year. And last year, my mite count was, I think, 2 per 100, and that's very, very low.
That's amazing. Are your hives oriented south? Is that to prevent death in deep cold?
Yes. No, right now, these hives are pointing that direction, and that's south. Not all the hives are pointed south. All of these are, and most of them at the farm are too, but there are a few that are pointed southwest, southeast. And yes, it is. You get the full exposure to the sun. You have to get them, the sun has to hit. That's what triggers the bees going out in the morning, is the sun hitting the hive, warming it up so the bees can go out. You want to get maximum exposure to the sun. So this is a perfect location. As you can see, the sun is over here, of course, setting in the west here. They're still kind of out right now, out and about.
Great. And then the last question we have in the chat as of right now is there another or easier book on bees besides the Hive and the Honeybee?
There are lots of books on bees. I would probably get Bees for Dummies. If you're talking about books that will get you started in the hobby. If you're talking about Dadant's book on bees, then there are some classics, but those are really somewhat, I mean, they're like any classic. Benjamin Franklin has a lot of great things to say, but we've had a lot of other, autobiographies that have kind of speak to a modern audience in a different way. Same with some of the first books written on bees. They have some great things to say. Some things haven't changed, but a lot has changed. So I would probably say I am a lover of the classics. I like the classic text. I wish Plato had written a book on bees, but I would try right now. I'd say get your classic text and get a newer text, because especially with the diseases and stuff, and bees they've really changed the whole hobby. Like I was saying at the very beginning, back in the 80s and 70s, keeping bees was easy. It was fantastic. No pests, nothing. Nothing was happening bad. You could get bees and you could do a great job raising bees. Now it's very, very difficult to keep bees and keep them well. The death rate, I started a bee association here maybe 7 years ago in Monmouth, and we served the surrounding area up to Quad Cities, over to Peoria. And we have probably 45, 50 beekeepers. The average loss per winter is probably 75% of their bees are lost every winter.
All right. And then do you have any recommendations for a casual gardener when it comes to flower planting selection?
Yes. Plant cone flowers, plant, what do they call, butterfly, anything that brings, sunflowers, anything that will bring catnip. Just find a book, and there's just tons. You can get what are called bee mixes from some seed companies, and you plant all those. But cone flowers are my favorite. Cone flowers are, we've got cone flowers right here. Not only do these get honeybees, they get bumblebees. We need to protect bumblebees as well. So you need to get these. These are the kind of flowers you want to get right here. These are perfect. Bees, all bees love these flowers. Plant as many of those as you can. Look, as I speak, there's a bumblebee right there. Do you see it? Can you see that bumblebee there? There we go.
Oh, it flew away.
Yeah, anyway, yes. please help the bees.
Fantastic. We've got 2 more questions and then we'll start to wrap up. Are there any new theories regarding colony collapse syndrome?
No, the same types of theories. A mixture, it's an admixture of things. One of those being pesticides, especially some of the stuff put out by Monsanto / Bayer, Ready Roundup, that kind of thing. What happens is a lot of those pesticides, what they do is they confuse the insect. So when it comes to a crop and it ingests that, it flies away, it forgets how to get back to the crop. Because, right, that's the idea. You want it to go away and not remember where that crop was to return the next day. What it does with bees, when they get it, ingest it, they forget how to get back to the hive. Because they spend a lot of time orienting themselves to the hive because they're flying up to a mile away, and to get back is pretty difficult. And if they ingest that and lose their way to get back, that's one of the causes of colony collapse.
Great. And then our final question, what happens to the hives in the winter?
In the winter, the bees will, the honey is there. The bees will eat the honey all winter long. So what the bees do is they cluster. They make a big cluster, and they keep that hive. What they'll do is they'll detach their wings, but still from their body, still flap their wings to generate heat. You know, it's like us. We all got in the room and started running in place. After a while, we would start generating a lot of heat in that room. They do the same thing. They flap their wings, and that produces heat. And that bundle of bees will keep that hive at 95 degrees Fahrenheit all through the winter. That keeps the honey fluid so it doesn't harden. If you ever had a honey jar and you put it in the basement and you saw that it crystallized, they can't eat that very well. So they keep it warm, and then they move around the hive and eat all the honey that is in the hive over the winter. So you got to leave them about 90 pounds of honey throughout the winter to get them through. And you know, unfortunately, sometimes they need more than that. So you get there right at the end of winter. They're up right at the top of the hive, because bees always move from the bottom to the top, and they always move from the center to the sides. So you start off in the beginning of winter, they'll be at the very bottom of the hive, and through the winter, they'll move up slowly, 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 eating all that honey. You'll find a whole group of dead bees right at the top of the hive, and the honey's gone. And they just didn't quite have enough to get them through the winter. And that's a real, real sad day.
Awesome. Dr. Vivian, do you have any closing remarks for us?
Well, I would just say, you've heard all the, all of the kind of pleas for help for bees. They do face a lot of problems. If there's any way you can support bees, I would do it, whether that's buying, natural honey from small beekeepers. It's small beekeepers like us. They're going to keep the bees thriving. The commercial beekeepers just can't do it because, I mean, that's not their goal. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is to have the bees collect and pollinate and collect honey. So they can't really put a lot of time and energy into maintaining the bees. They're not really beekeepers, right? They're not beekeepers are a part of animal husbandry. So if you can support bees in any way you can, I have people here that I help get one beehive, put it in their backyard. They don't have to do anything. I come over, I help them with it. They get the benefits of getting some honey. If any of you know Pete Lomax, he's got a hive right now. He gets honey all the time, right? And he just keeps one hive at his house. Lee McGann keeps a hive at his house now. So I've got Marlo Belchner. So professors usually keep hives some of them keep a hive at their house, and I help them with it. But it also keeps one more hive of bees alive. So do that. Also, if you feel like it, I'm sorry I didn't run this by you, Jordan, but if you feel like it and you want to donate something to the college for bee upkeep, please think about it. It doesn't take much to keep the bees going. So, and if you really want me to take a holiday, do that too. Send me something. No, I'm just joking about that one. Okay, I think that's it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Dr. Vivian, for a great presentation. And thank you to all of our participants for taking time out of your busy week and also for sticking with us through some of those technical difficulties that we had this evening. We really hope that you enjoyed this unique experience with Dr. Vivian. This year brings many new scenarios to life at Monmouth College. So if you'd like to learn more about our fall plan, please feel free to visit our website, monmouthcollege.edu, for all of that information. I'd also like to thank you all for your support. There are many ways to help the college out during this time. While we are grounded, you are our eyes and ears in the community, and we can't travel to them currently. So please take extra efforts to connect with one another. Let us know about potential new Monmouth students, and just keep that Monmouth spirit alive and out there for us. As a reminder, as you leave the webinar, there will be a short survey that will appear. We hope that you will just take a moment to give us your feedback, and even more importantly, that you'll share your suggestions for upcoming Tartan Talks and virtual engagement events. This webinar was recorded and will be available on the Monmouth College website within the next few days. Again, thank you, Dr. Craig Vivan, for being so generous with your time. We are adjourned for this evening.